Bye, Garrett. It's 10:55 right now, and we want to tell you about a new study from Switzerland. It says that finding that owning a dog or a cat is linked to slower cognitive decline in older adults. Dog owners showed sharper memory, while cat owners experienced slower declines in verbal fluency. However, fish and bird owners, they didn't see the same benefits, guys. So researchers believe the emotional connection and mental stimulation from a cat or a dog may be playing a key role. Experts say this research could reshape how we think about preventing dementia, offering a fun and meaningful way to stay engaged as we age. I think it's interesting that they said birds don't have the same effect, and you would think a bird is pretty engaging.
Right, especially if you have one that will talk to you.
Will talk to you,
right? Yeah. But I think that, especially with dogs, because cats don't, require you to walk them, but with dogs, if you are required to get up, walk the dog, feed the dog, take care of the dog, you're engaging, you're talking to the dog, right? All of those things help to keep your brain going, and physically too. It's huge. Yeah.
Maybe even get a little fish. Can we look into that?
I've had one fish in my lifetime. It's one of those I got like at one of the fairs where you bounced a ball, and I don't think they do that anymore.
A little goldfish.
That's how I got a goldfish.
How long did you have that goldfish for?
Never.
Not very long.
I took care of them.
You're supposed to take it out of the bag.
I did do that. All right, well, it may be gross, but there's a term for just going to the bathroom and hiding. Do you participate in, it's called bathroom camping, apparently. It's when the bathroom is your safe space. You apparently don't need to use the toilet or the sink. You just want to get away. People on TikTok are bragging about how it's easy to take your mental breaks or hit the reset button. I could see this. They say, but if you do it a lot, you seriously hate your job. So keep that in mind. But now where we've got construction going on, so the bathroom's very crowded.
Yeah.
So those people I think are really struggling now.
Yeah, I hate going to the bathroom because I'm like, oh, it's like, there's like a crowd.
Multiple people
there's a
there.
crowd in the
It's like going to a shopping mall.
Yes. Once this construction's done, we'll be free.
Then you can just go in there and have your peace and solidarity in there.
Well, I think, hot take here, I don't even know if it's used as much at work, but I think there's a lot of discussion, at least among my friends, about camping at home.
Oh, yeah.
And is this a thing? And usually they hear about the men in our lives.
Some men guilty of that, yes.
It used to be the newspaper, remember? They rattled the newspaper in the bathroom.
Bye, everybody.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We've got a lot to get to. I want to let you know some of what we have coming up for you in this next hour here on our show. Give you a live look right now where we are standing by for another update in Texas, Central Texas, from local officials in Kerr County, where they were devastated by flooding over the weekend. One of the areas that was really hit hardest in that state of Texas. So we're standing by for an update. Officials there are going to give the latest on the flooding rescue and recovery efforts. At last count, 104 people confirmed dead in the entire state of Texas. Dozens are still missing. That includes 10 girls and one counselor from Camp Mystic, the Christian girls camp in Kerr County. And as I said, that county is really one of the areas hit the hardest. We know that 84 people died there, including 28 children, 27 campers, the latest number we got from that Camp Mystic. 850 plus people rescued over the weekend in the flooding across the state. And so this has been a big story. We've been keeping an eye on it. We know that there's a number of organizations from Florida that are either on the ground there or getting ready to head that way to help. So we're expecting an update on the flooding in just any minute now, scheduled to start at 11. That's 10 a.m. Central Time. So we expect them to begin any minute now. And when that begins, we will bring that to you live here on Fox 35 News Plus. We are also standing by expecting President Trump to meet with members of the cabinet and the White House. We will also try to bring that to you when it begins. Also, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner telling us that storm chances are going to be on the increase, so we'll have more on what you need to watch for and prepare for as the week continues. But that also includes a bit of a warning about the heat. You're going to have to take some precautions. Make sure you're hydrated if you have any outdoor plans, because there's going to be a pretty high heat index over the next few days. But we begin with a story out of Lake County, where the estranged wife of suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez bonded out of jail in Lake County yesterday evening. She was behind bars for about 2 weeks. And then when she walked out of jail last night, Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie reports Robin Lopez did not speak with reporters, but her lawyers did.
Well, our cameras were rolling as Robin Severance Lopez walked out of the door behind me. She remained silent as about a dozen reporters and photographers shouted questions at her. She kept her head down, got into the back of a truck, and took off. She is being charged with conspiracy to use or invest proceeds from racketeering. She spent the last 2 weeks locked up until a judge verified and signed off on an order looking into where her $400,000 bond money was coming from. According to the judge, she had to prove the money was clean before he granted her release. It came down to a question of $20,000. Just minutes before her release, around 7:30 last night, Fox 35 caught up with her attorney, Michelle Yard.
A family member gave her the additional $20,000 that she needed, and so we supplied those bank records over the weekend to the state.
All of this stemming from the allegations and arrest of her estranged husband, suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez. Lopez and 3 others are charged with operating an illegal gambling ring. Severance Lopez is now wearing a GPS ankle monitor. She's been ordered to turn over her passport and guns and have no contact with her estranged husband. Now, for the past 2 weeks, she has been in protective custody, which is similar to isolation. Her attorney tells us she's looking forward to being home with her son. Reporting in Lake County, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
I want to go ahead and get you now to Texas, where this briefing is just beginning. Officials in Kerr County, Texas, giving an update. The latest numbers there, they just gave 87 people who died have been recovered, 56 adults, 30 children, still trying to identify 19 adults and 7 children. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Assure you we will not stop until this mission is complete. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to City Mayor.
Thank you for being here. I'm Joe Herring Jr. I'm Mayor of the City of Kerrville. I want to reassure our community and those families that the city, the county, the state, and the federal experts are working together, not separately, but as one team. If you go inside the Emergency Operations Center, you don't see silos. You see one team. I want to talk briefly about in-kind donations. The outpouring of generosity has been tremendous, and we are grateful. We are working on a new system to accept donations. And when those plans are complete, we will post them online on the city's Facebook page. We are grateful. We need a new system to handle the generosity of the world. Financial donations can still go to communityfoundation.net. That's the community foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Again, we are grateful for the generosity of the world. Over and over, I've asked you to pray. It occurred to me that I haven't asked you for what to pray specifically. Please pray for those who mourn, for those who wait, and for those who help. Now I'd like to call on Lieutenant Colonel Ben Baker.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ben Baker, Lieutenant Colonel for Texas Game Wardens. I'd like to start out by thanking the mayor, sheriff, chief, our local state partners, Texas Department of Public Safety, and the many others that have responded to this tragic event. We as Texas are strong, and together we face adversity. Your Texas Game Wardens responded in the early mornings of Friday to this tragic event, along with many other local and state partners. Since the early mornings of Friday, your Texas Gamers have had over 300 game wardens in the area, serving the people of the state of Texas and the citizens of Kerr County. Among that, we've searched 26 river miles since the tragic event has started. We've had approximately 444 rescues, 30 recoveries. Some of our resources and assets we have dedicated to this tragic event include 2 helicopters with hoist teams, 12 drone teams, 10 K9 units, 9 swiftwater boat crews, 15 airboats, 16 UTVs, and 169 four-wheel drive vehicles. Your Texas Game Wardens will remain here and serving the community. We just ask you to continue to pray for the victims, for the families, for your first responders, for everyone involved. We'll open it up now to questions, if anybody has any.
Can you talk about how challenging it is for you guys in the mud, the big trees? What's been like the different terrain?
No, thank you for that question. Extremely challenging. You know, we've got, of course, your Texas Game Wardens out there, your local, your state partners, Texas Task Force 1. We've got the National Forest Service out there. We've got A&M Forest Service. We've got numerous responders with specialized capabilities where we've got these large pile of debris. And with our canines and you know, when we're trying to make these recoveries, these large piles can be very obstructive. And to get deep into these piles is very hazardous. And those specialized teams have to go in there layer by layer because our first responders, also the safety of them is concerned. So it's extremely treacherous, time-consuming, it's dirty work, the water's still there. So we're having to go layer by layer, peeling these off to make those recoveries.
What about mentally? Like when you guys stumble across someone who may be deceased, how do you process that?
Absolutely. We process it the best we can. We have professionals in place, our crisis intervention team. All the agencies have some members representing there, and officer wellness is a first responder wellness is a key component to these operations. So we're maintaining and monitoring our officer wellness, our first responder wellness. We're making sure they have the support. it's very tragic whenever you see human life. But to see a child and that loss of life is extremely tragic.
More rain is expected to come down west of us, and eventually it's going to get down to Guadalupe River. Is that going to put a halt to the searches? And if not, how are you going to change the trajectory of the search and rescue operations?
So with the water coming down, that is always a concern, and I'm sure you've been monitoring the last couple of days where we've had some reports of maybe some additional water coming in. Obviously, that's going to impact the search and recovery efforts. You know, us with numerous other agencies do have air capabilities, drone capabilities. We've got numerous fixed wing, rotary helicopters here. So it will alter our patrol patterns and alter our searches, but it won't deter them.
I have a question for the specific discussions and actions were taken between the time the first flood emergency alert came in at 1:14 a.m. and then when the river first started flooding homes hours later. What were the specific actions and discussions that happened in those hours?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure, absolutely. I would like to know if you could outline, please, what the specific actions and discussions were that local officials took between 1:14 a.m., that's when the first flood emergency alert came out, and hours later when the river first started flooding. What happened in those hours?
What I can tell you, when I was first notified, it was around the 4 to 5 area. One of my sergeants was in dispatch when the first calls started coming in, the actual 911 calls come in. It was between 4 and 5 when I got notified. Okay, but prior to that, in that 3 to 4 area, my understanding is, and we're in the process of trying to put a timeline. You know, that's going to take a little bit of time. As I've told you several times, that is not my priority this time. There's 3 priorities. That's locating the people out there, identifying and notifying the next of kin. That is what I'm taking as my job as sheriff here to do. Okay.
With all due respect, sir, I think that the community here is asking these questions. What happened? When did it happen? Was the emergency manager awake at the time? Did they push the button to issue an emergency alert?
Sir, it's not that easy when you just push a button, okay? There's a lot more to that. And we've told you several times.
So did it happen, sir?
I can't tell you at this time, okay?
You can't tell me if the emergency manager of the county actually issued an emergency alert.
Okay, Sheriff, who
Shimon, just give me a second.
Emergency Operations Center? Who
Let
runs
him answer the question.
the Emergency
I'll come back to you. I'm going nowhere.
Appreciate it.
Who runs the Emergency Operations Center?
We have a communication center, a dispatch, okay? We have a communication center. That's where the calls actually go to the police department, then they're forwarded to us.
But leading up to this, in monitoring the weather, there is, in any large city, in any state, there's an Office of Emergency Management that is monitoring the weather, that is watching and listening and getting briefings. Who was getting those briefings in this city, in this county? Who was receiving that information? And who would have ultimately made the decision to evacuate, hearing what was coming in from the Weather Service and others?
Okay, what we would have done when we get notified, okay, I'm going to tell you that.
You're not emergency management, though, right? The sheriff's not EOC.
No, there is no, I meant as the city. Yeah, help me with that.
So we understand you have many questions. Hang on.
No, I understand, but you're not gonna answer the question because that's up to the city manager and the mayor to answer those
Correct.
questions.
We understand you have many questions.
The judge is not here.
We understand that, but right now, this team up here is focused on bringing people home. That's our focus. All those questions will be answered, but the priority right now
It seems like you're
is bringing people home.
We totally understand that, and we value the incredible work that is being done by those first responders. We're seeing them out there muddy and sweaty and grinding it out day after day. But your community is asking these questions.
And we will get answers. Right now, all of our resources are focused to recovery.
Who was in charge of the Emergency Operations Center at the time that was getting any briefings?
Do we have another question?
I think I'd like to focus on what local people can be looking for. We're looking at some erosion in roads and safety and then traveling. What can we tell people who live here right now and what they could do in their daily life? Should they worry about traveling on roads? Do we know anything about that infrastructure?
Sure, absolutely. Jonathan Lamb, Kerrville Police Department. So we know that there's substantial road damage. Some roads have been closed for safety. We've got crews out there in the county shoring them up and making sure that people can travel to and from. What we're asking for the public to do to assist us is, if they believe that they have seen someone, a victim, notify emergency services. Call 911, let us know, or use our non-emergency numbers, area code 830-257-8181. Contact our dispatch team and we will send officers out there. We also ask folks to limit their travel. Our first responders have had a very difficult time getting to where they need to go because of the amount of people who are flooding our roadways. We understand there's natural curiosity. People want to come here and see the flood damage. Now is not the time for sightseeing. This operation is ongoing and continuous, and it will continue. I've got time for one more question. Last question. As far as I know, the last live rescue, unless there's new information, and I don't believe there is, was made on Friday. All right, I'm afraid that's going to have to do it for this morning.
Can someone answer if the bodies have been released to the families, Sheriff?
Excuse me.
Have the bodies been released to the families?
Some. I mean, they're at autopsy.
How many are still missing? We have an estimate among the general population, not just the girls from Mystic, even just credible reports. Is it hundreds still? Is there any estimate among the general population of how many people are
No,
missing?
I've told y'all several times, it's hard to know that number. No, we don't. I know the numbers that we have found, and that's all I know.
You still don't want to tell us who is.
All right, so we're going to continue our operations. The next time that we're going to be in front of y'all will be at 5 p.m. right back here. If there is a critical update, again, we'll provide that information to you through the contact list that you have provided to us. Thank y'all. We appreciate it.
Officials in Kerr County, Texas, wrapping up what was at times a contentious news conference there as questions were being asked about what emergency officials did in the time since the first emergency alerts came out, asking for a timeline, asking for what those steps were, asking for those preparations, asking for some information about who was making those decisions and when, and asking for some more information about the emergency manager. Those were questions that we saw the sheriff, that the other officials as well kind of sidestep and avoid at this time, saying their priority right now is these ongoing operations, which are being characterized as search and recovery, no longer search and rescue. They said their last live rescue was on Friday. The latest numbers just out of Kerr County, 87 dead have been recovered. That includes 30 children. Still working to identify a couple dozen adults and children as well. So just continue to be tragic updates from Central Texas following the flooding there. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. You heard in that news conference out of Texas a number of questions about the protocols, the procedures, the steps that were taken once the first emergency alerts were given out in central Texas ahead of the devastation and the quickly rising river that caused so many deaths there in Texas over the weekend. This morning on Good Day Orlando, the emergency manager of Seminole County joined to talk about Texas flooding and also talk about some of the local protocols that are in place for dealing with these emergency alerts. I want to play for you that conversation. This is Alan Harris from the Seminole County Office of Emergency Management speaking with Amy Caulfield just a little bit ago on Good Day Orlando.
Alan, just such a heartbreaking story. I can only imagine what, thoughts were going through your head when you're hearing about all of this.
Yeah, when I think about these things, I look at my own county and how I could respond and make sure something like this doesn't happen here in Seminole County in the Central Florida area. Very heartbreaking, and that as the numbers continue to go up, all of us are affected. I think anyone with any compassion whatsoever. I'm a Eagle Scout. I enjoyed camping when I was a kid. It was some of the most exciting experiences of my life. Camp Rainy Mountain, Camp Shands. There were just amazing camps where you learned a lot, teamwork, leadership, all kinds of things, but just so heartbreaking.
It's just awful. And, Alan, when we compare what's happening in the hill country of Texas to what happens here, obviously we have a lot of rain here and we do have flooding, but we don't often have flash flooding. I'm guessing just because different types of soil here, that the ground absorbs a little bit more here than maybe it does in Texas.
Yeah, so we're quite flat. So when you look at the pictures of this flash flood, it's really a hill-type basin. So it fills up very quickly, where ours is able to go out much further. So when we're talking about flooding, especially along the St. Johns River, it takes weeks sometimes, where most people have seen the time lapse now. It was minutes to an hour and feet of water. Now, we did experience something like that in Hurricane Ian when you get 20 plus inches of rain. We got 26 at one spot there in Winter Springs. It's really hard to manage that type of water. There's really no way to manage that type of water except to evacuate individuals out of the way, and that can be very, very difficult, especially if it's in the middle of the night.
Alan, one of the things we keep hearing them talk about is the warnings. That NWS did send out warnings, but if people hadn't signed up for the warnings, they wouldn't hear them. And then they have been talking about, maybe they need sort of like a tornado warning system like they have in the Midwest, right? Where there's like they sound these alarms for communities to hear. What types of things are in place here, and what are your thoughts on these warning systems?
Yeah, so in the state of Florida, we have taken a very advanced look at this. So each of our counties, all 67 counties, have an alerting system that is supported and managed by the state of Florida, and then individually each county emergency management office administers it for that particular county. So it's paid by the state of Florida. Each county benefits from getting that. Here in Seminole County, it's called Alert Seminole, and we can push out alerts targeted to specific geographic areas, but we can also send out what's called the emergency IPAWS, Integrated Public Alerting Warning System. You've probably gotten it on your cell phone, the Amber alerts that have gone there. It's important for you to keep the emergency alerts on. The emergency alerts are the alerts that are going to come from your local emergency management, law enforcement, fire rescue, if something is moving into your area and you need to do things. We've experienced this, unfortunately. We had a major wildfire and it affected the Girl Scout camp. Thankfully, the Girl Scout camp had emergency protocols and plans in place. We notified them and they evacuated everyone safely. But this has happened here locally, a different type of natural hazard, but we have had to evacuate individuals because of these types of events.
Well, and you bring up a good point, and I think that's the other thing that's, is concerning about these little girls is that, this was a no cell phone camp, right? The cell phone, all the girls had to give up their phones if they had them, right? And so now you're relying on the counselors and the people running the camp, and so that also makes it a little more challenging.
Yeah, you definitely, as a parent, you would want to make sure that wherever you go, that the camp is accredited. So there's certain standards that camp has. This camp may have been, I don't know, but also check to see what the emergency procedures are for that particular camp. I know all my brother and my sister, they send their children to camp. These are things they're thinking of, now. Normally it's what activities are they going to do? How are they going to have fun? Now we're thinking, hey, what are the emergency procedures? How do we evacuate people? Things like that. And what's the camp staff to the camper ratio? So those are things that we all have to think about.
And certainly important questions to ask as those continue to see those heartbreaking images coming out of Texas. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are still standing by, expecting President Trump to speak at the start of a cabinet meeting at the White House coming up any minute now. We expected that in the last little bit. It has not yet begun, so we do expect that to begin shortly, and we'll try to bring that to you live as it begins. But we want to bring you an update now from a story here in Central Florida, where we've learned 2 men are behind bars facing charges now in connection with a street takeover on the 4th of July. Wait till you see some of the details on this one. The Florida Highway Patrol saying more than 24 cars were out creating chaos, some of them even shooting fireworks out of their windows. Fox 35's Morgan Parrish has the details.
It was definitely chaotic. Nearly 50 cars out there doing donuts. If you can take a look at this video, and you can also see that they were shooting off fireworks from their car windows. According to FHP, they said a lot of them were from the car windows. Take a listen to what troopers had to say when all of this was happening.
FHP air, we have one spinning in the intersection right now, shooting Roman candles outside the passenger window.
And this was all happening on the 4th of July near Paramore Avenue and Gore Street. FHP says that there were 40 cars at the meetup at this unsanctioned event, which was blocking traffic. And it was just one of multiple street takeovers planned for that night, where alcohol was also being sold illegally. Suspects Anthony Colon and Roderick Baez both arrested and charged with violating the street racing stunt driving law. The FHP report says Anthony Colon has been promoting illegal street takeovers for years. And Jamie Copenhagen, a former sheriff's detective, says it's a dangerous trend here in Florida.
Anytime you have a street takeover, it's certainly dangerous for not only the participants, but also the passing motorists that have no clue that this street takeover is taking place.
And we're working to learn if both suspects have bonded out of jail. We know that Colon is also facing charges for selling liquor without a license.
And now another dangerous situation here. 2 teenagers in DeBary are facing serious charges over a prank, but again, certainly could be very dangerous. They were caught on camera kicking in their neighbor's front door. Fox 35's Marley Capper has that story.
Serious charges for sure. Now, this is all a part of a social media trend called the door kicking challenge. It's exactly what it sounds like. And Sheriff Mike Chitwood is not having any of it. He said, quote, on Facebook, I want to read this to you. This challenge is a surefire way to get locked up with a felony, or even worse, being shot and killed by a homeowner. Take a look at this video that was posted to Facebook. You can see the 2 teens run up to a home in DeBary, use their feet to smash open the door, and then run off. It was all caught on a Ring doorbell. Now they both face felony burglary charges. Deputies found the 2 teens. The 15-year-old told deputies, quote, we were just being stupid, end quote. They found the 13-year-old hiding in their mom's attic after the mom gave deputies permission to search the house. Here's what deputies had to say when explaining the damage to these teens.
It's kicked in. It's in. It's broke. That's the doorknob. It's completely broken in.
Now, Sheriff Chitwood says that parents need to talk to their children, their kids, and say, you know, this challenge might not seem harmless, but it is, and it can wind you up in some big trouble with the law. So just don't even mess around with it and don't even try the challenge.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. Brooks, we're talking more of that heat and humidity today.
Exactly, Garrett. It is just like rinse and repeat. But I think as we head toward the weekend, we're going to lean more toward the rinse part because we're going to see our thunderstorm chances increasing significantly. So today is going to be a little bit warmer and a little bit stormier than it was yesterday. It's kind of a stepping stone to a stormier pattern and a busier weather setup for us. So we'll go from where we currently stand in the mid 80s through the 11 o'clock hour to 93, our high by 5 p.m. So as you start heading home from work or maybe heading out on doing some errands or exercising, it's going to be really hot. I mean, that 93 is going to feel like 105 to 106 with the humidity. There will be a real heat index today. There's also about a 50-50 shot at some rain developing. The sea breeze will collide in a line from DeLand to Sanford to Orlando to St. Cloud and Kissimmee. So there's a focus point of thunderstorms that should blossom after 6 p.m. and could continue to rain through 9 in spots. It'll be 92 today in Bushnell, 92 in Titusville as well. A southwest wind this morning making super hot, super humid conditions. We're going to be looking forward to that sea breeze coming in this afternoon from the Atlantic to cool us down a touch, but also spark off those thunderstorms. 103 is the feels like temperature today in Orlando, 106 Bushnell, 106 in Bithlo. The point at which you hit a heat advisory is about 108 for the feels like temp. We won't quite be there, but we won't be far from it. So if you have any outdoor plans, listen to your body and monitor the skies. We've got about a 50% chance for rain. It's a 50-50 shot in orange. Best chances there from basically Astor and Lake George all the way southward through Bithlo, Christmas, Chuliota, Oviedo, and to Kenansville, and on southward toward Yeehaw Junction with lower rain chances as you get farther west toward Tampa Bay. That's going to be where the sea breezes collide. So looking at the latest future clouds and radar, a southwest flow will provide a couple of fast-moving downpours through the day, highly isolated but locally heavy. You know the game here in Florida. But then once we get into the sea breeze collision part of the day, where that east coast sea breeze off the Atlantic moves in, it's going to start to flare up some storms this evening around Orlando and down into Kissimmee, probably between about 7 and 9 p.m. so as the sun's setting. And then this weekend, you see that big red blob out there in the Atlantic? That's an upper level piece of energy with a lot of tropical moisture associated with it. And it is going to be working westward toward our region and kind of elongating as it gets here, losing its circulation, but transporting in a lot of deep tropical air. And so that is going to be like the fuel for the fire for even more rain coming up this weekend. Now, don't worry, it's nothing tropical in the sense of tropical development's concerned. And in fact, over the next week, I'm not expecting any tropical activity. So that's good news. And let's hope the trend continues in what has been a somewhat slow start to the hurricane season, at least from our perspective. All right, let's talk 7-day forecast. Low 90s for the next 7 days. Rain chances going up from a 50-50 chance today and tomorrow to a likely 60% chance Thursday, Friday, and then a even more likely chance, if not a guarantee, for a portion of this weekend from Saturday on into the middle of next week. Now, a 70% chance doesn't mean it's going to rain all day. It just means that probably from late morning on, we'll have a chance for rain all day with intermittent showers, storms, and weather similar to what we saw this past weekend and the week before with a lot of rain. But Garrett, one thing that we're not talking about is the drought, because for a lot of us, this has been enormous drought relief. So it's not bad news for our region.
And those feels like temperatures or something else.
They sure are. Yeah, 108 is the threshold for the heat advisory, and we're not quite there yet. But once you get over 105, it starts getting to that territory where even if you're accustomed to this kind of heat, you work outdoors in Florida, it can catch up to you if you're not listening to your body.
Yeah, it can still be a lot. Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
Oh, my pleasure as always. Thank you, Garrett.
And as we go to break, here's a live look at downtown Orlando on this Tuesday morning. Keep it right here. More Fox 35 News Plus in 2 minutes.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Just a couple of days away now from the official release of EA Sports College Football 26. That game is available now with early access. If you bought the bundle with Madden, get a couple of days of early access for that. Both of those games were developed at EA Sports in Orlando here, and Fox 35 had the chance yesterday to speak with some of the heads of the company about following up on the return of college football and some of also continuing to improve and progress that game as well. One of the folks we had the chance to speak with yesterday was Rob Jones, who we've had on our program here on Fox Local before. He's the Executive Design Director with EA Sports American Football. Here's what he said.
I just shipped College Football 26.
So is that your primary focus is college football and college football 26?
Going forward, it'll be both. Okay. But last year and the year before, I was one of the primary people responsible for bringing back the college football franchise.
Last year, obviously a huge day. Today is sophomore year. What's kind of running through your mind? You nervous? You excited? What do you think?
It's a little bit like calm before the storm. Like the game came out here at noon right now. A lot less hectic than it was last year. Last year there was so much nervous energy in that room, and this year a lot of people are calmer, which means that one, we executed a little bit better, but two, we kind of already know what our players are expecting from us, and so it's really the excitement of seeing people get into the games, start playing, and then seeing if anything crops up that we might want to adjust.
What is your favorite aspect of the new College Football 26?
So many. For one thing, I'm just a competitor, and so there's so much variety in the play styles in college football, and the fact that we replicate it so well and make people feel that every team or every school feels like their own, that'll always be my number one thing. In terms of features, really, really excited by what we did with Road to Glory. Last year, we weren't able to create a situation where you felt like you were being recruited, and for so many kids these days, being recruited to go play D1, football, basketball, whatever it is kind of a big thing. So we now have that in the game. So, you kind of feel it ends up where you have a hat ceremony, you're picking, you could, me, I'm a big Michigan fan. A lot of people know this because I went to school there. But me, like, being able to throw the Ohio State hat away before, I show up and pick my Michigan hat is always a big thing. So that's probably the biggest new feature in terms of what we shipped this year. But there's so much, like upgrades just across the entire game.
How much was the success of last year's game? It was one of the most anticipated games of all time, especially for sports. So how much did that success of last year's game help get you guys ready for this iteration of College Football 26?
I tell you one thing, like the way the team is set up, we are so excited to bring college football to our players every single year. We felt that there was so much more that we could do, but we only had so much time, and we had to get 25 out. So as much as people were excited by what we delivered in 25, we're already looking at all the things that we were planning on sneaking into 26, and we spent a lot of time really thinking of it. So yeah, we're excited about 25. 26 is even more exciting for us because we're able to kind of put the cherry on top of the cake that we missed last year.
We asked Sean, how much user feedback did you guys listen to, take, and maybe what's one thing that maybe so many people were clamoring for that you guys were like, yeah, we got to get that into 26?
I think the biggest thing that people asked us for was the trophy room, just the ability to, save and have every single trophy that you achieve throughout the game, however you play, show up so that then you can go show your buddies how deep, I was looking today, somebody was like, it's like now that you put college football 25 down, how many hours does it say you played? There are people who had like into 2,000 hours. 2,000 hours for a year, that's how many hours you work in a year. So I'm sitting here going, okay, like you all were really into it, but we didn't save all those things. So all those accomplishments are in your mind and not anywhere that you can actually put in front of someone. And so many people asked us to bring that back. So that's back in the game this year, and we're really happy about it.
One of the challenges of these games, annual ones, is you're working with, in the college game, mostly similar rosters. What are some of the things that you built into, like the challenges you face when it comes to the atmosphere, the crowd? Right, everyone loved the first iteration. How do you make sure the second iteration isn't just the same thing?
Last year the big thing was like try to hit every school with something, but when you really broke it down, probably the top 45 schools had multiple pieces of tradition. And what we went back in, it was like, okay, well, one, we need to update them. But we also, there's 40 schools, but there's 136 of them in the game. And so we wanted to expand that depth of traditions across even the smaller schools. And there were schools that were like, you didn't give us our mascot. You didn't give us any chants. So for us doing that and just being authentic to every school is super, super important. So you'll see a lot of that in this year's version.
So you were hearing from them then?
Trust me, we were. We're hearing from them today.
As far as last year, college football was big because of the NIL, and the players that opted into the game got $600. I've heard that number's gone up. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of getting the players that the fans are going to play with in the game into the game?
So, we work with our partnership at the CLC, and one of the things is we just have an easy app where our players can opt into the the game every single year. As you said, last year we offered $600. I think that number's gone up to like $1,500 this year. So one, we want to share within our success to everyone. One of the things I like the most about the way our deal is structured is anybody who opts in gets to participate and have success from it. So that's one thing that I'm really happy about. But as they opt in, we ingest all of that information. We have to recreate their likenesses, their abilities, and then make sure that we process it all and get it in. It's kind of a tough process because, rosters are shifting all the way until August. And so for us getting that information in, we really start late April to start pulling those in. And depending on how much churn, especially now at the transfer portal, how much churn is in those rosters, being accurate is one, pride of, it's a point of pride for us. But at the same time, it's also very, very difficult because the scale is pretty big.
College fandom, extremely passionate, obviously, but your developers also have their own loyalties.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me? Do you have a story to tell at all about like some in-office discussions when it comes to which teams their loyalties lie with or anything like that?
Well, pretty much every single day. So, one, there's a lot of Ohio State fans here. There's a lot of Big Ten fans here. So, like, the main presentation producer or designer for us is a Penn State grad. So between the fact that I'm Michigan, my next right-hand producer is a Michigan State person, right? And then I have the Penn State, and I have a bunch of Ohio State fans. So there's a lot of Big Ten representation in the office. It's mostly just ribbing at each other more than anything else. There's no malice in anything. But you do want to show up every single day and let them know, especially when you get your W's, that you're still a fan, all right? And that's actually part of the culture that drives the team. You'll see around, we have Florida State, we have Oregon, we have USC fans. Everyone, especially being in Orlando, UCF fans, we go to games, like literally, like we'll do outings to games just together. There's no like major stories of ribbing, except for when you come into my office. I don't know, you all did a tour. There's a Michigan office, and that's my office in here. So.
Now, when college football went away, was there ever a time when you thought it's done for good, or did you always think that I think it's going to come back one day?
So I actually came back. I started on Madden. I went away for 20 years. I worked at a competitor for a long time, making an NBA basketball game. And then when I came back to do college football. So I know that there's people here who could have left the company, but stayed with the hope that college football would come back one day. And kudos to them. They're on the team now. They're spokespeople. They're people whose fandom just kind of flows out of their pores every single day, and they're just so passionate, not just for themselves as game makers, but also for the players out there. So I find myself lucky to be able to work with them every day.
I have a question. This is random.
Yeah.
I figured they might want to know too. I saw on Twitter this weekend everyone's really excited that the Pop-Tart mascot is in. Can you talk about that?
One of the things, like we felt like since we replicate all of the bowls, and as we were building all these mascots, sometimes you kind of want to have fun. And the Pop-Tart mascot and the way that they replicate in the bowl is a lot of fun. So we were like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should make this mascot as well. And it gives our artists an ability to go in and just be a little bit more creative than just the normal football stuff that we do every single day. So.
Is every artist back going to be on that Pop-Tart team?
Well, the Pop-Tart is only part of the bowl, but they, if they were playable, they'd absolutely love to be part of the Pop-Tart team.
Did you bring the Pop-Tart mascot in and do the stop motion to get the perfect movement of the
I actually don't know who motion captured. I don't know who motion captured the Pop-Tart movements, but I don't think it was the actual Pop-Tart person.
Something to look for in that game. I tell you what, a lot of excitement about that, and going to have to check out the Pop-Tart Bowl as well. Well, we're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
when I got there the most.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. The cabinet meeting, Trump meeting with his administration officials. They are speaking right now, I believe, hearing from not Health and Human Services, but Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem talking about the deadly Texas flooding. Let's go ahead and listen in as this meeting begins at the White House.
Immediately, but as soon as you signed the major disaster declaration, we were able to get them resources and dollars right away, just like you envisioned through state block grants to help them with cleanup. And we're still there in presence, and FEMA's been deployed, and we're cutting through the paperwork of the old FEMA, streamlining it much like your vision of how FEMA should operate, and it's been a much better response to help these families get through this terrible situation. We still are looking for people. We're still looking for a lot of little girls and other family members that were camping along that river, and they will continue until they find every single person, and we will continue to help them and assist in that. I was surprised when I got there at the camp that day, right after this happened, the parents that were there, the parents that were looking for their children and picking up their daughter's stuffed animals out of the mud and finding their daughter's shoe that might be laying in the cabin, and just hugging and comforting people matters a lot. I'm extremely grateful for God's hand in that whole situation, because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were saved. And this is a time for all of us in this country to remember that we were created to serve each other. God created us to take care of each other. And that when we do that, we are happier, we are more fulfilled, and we can walk alongside people on their worst day and help them get through it and come out the other side, knowing that we can continue to live a life that God has purposed for us. So they're grateful for you. Several times the day after the flooding, you and Melania were on the phone with me, and I want to thank you for that. That meant the world. I was able to tell many of those folks that I had been visiting with you, and that you had said, whatever they need, Kristi, let's deploy it and get it down there and be helpful. And on Sunday, when the families were waiting at a church to identify their children's bodies, Franklin Graham and I called in and prayed with the families and read some scripture with them, and he was incredible in making himself available to that as well. We'll be back down there in a couple of days and continue to do all we can, but this is an unprecedented event. It really is. There's been tragedies like this around the country, but everyone is unique in different situations, and the response the federal government had supporting the state through this, I'm proud of the people that stepped up and immediately came. The Coast Guard, when they came in, they had a difficult time even getting the aircraft in and landed. They had to try several times in the weather to get it in and deploy, and I think we've heard about our one Coast Guard member that was responsible for saving over 165 people, but that entire crew did incredible work. And all the first responders there did incredible work. And I know people are getting tired now, but they're getting reinforcements and volunteers are showing up. And I just want to commend the governor and his team for being the leaders. And they're so thankful that you're letting them make the decisions and manage the response like it should be. And then us supporting them with the resources of the federal government. We've already deployed dollars to the state, much like the block grants that you've talked about. Right. So they're grateful for that, sir.
There's never been a wave like this outside of the breaking of a dam. Because this was almost a wave that ended up being 30 feet high, more actually. Now with the dam you can understand it, but this approached almost with that speed. When you see a dam break, it's not a pretty sight. It wipes out everything, and this is the kind of thing that built up so fast. And it's happened 2 or 3 times before over the years, but not to this extent. But tell them when you met the father who was picking up the daughter's clothing. And
I had walked through the cabin where all the little girls died, and I had kind of fallen apart in there, but I walked out of the cabin, and a gentleman was standing there, and he said, that man over there needs a hug. And so I walked over to him and I hugged him and I said, do you work here? And he said, no, my little girl was in that cabin. And he said, and I just found her best friend about an hour and a half ago. She had passed away. And he just fell apart. And so then we just hugged and talked for probably an hour about that. But then there was another, the grandpa was there looking for his granddaughter as well. There was a dad there of one of the counselors. The counselor was alive, but she was dealing with the fact that she had hung on to some of these girls and was trying to keep them out of the floodwaters and had gotten hit by something and had lost 2 of the girls and wasn't able to hang on to them and was going to live the rest of her life thinking about that moment when she wasn't able to hang on to these girls. But these parents were picking up their kids' belongings out of the mud and throughout the camp and putting them in bags. And then one of the dads said, I knew 50 of these girls here. So I knew that was her dress and my daughter's friend's dress. So he was picking it up and putting it in a bag to return to her parents. And so it was and then the director was there comforting everybody who had lost his father the night before too. And he was still there trying to facilitate all of these parents grieving their children and find them. So the strength of people is incredible. One of the things that I asked there that day was that they all have escorts or counselors when parents come in. So from that point, that when they came into the camp, that they have somebody with them when they're going and looking for their children's belongings or looking for their children. And so, very emotional, but also just so tragic.
The relationship with Texas and the governor has been obviously very good for years with me, but the relationship with Texas and their first responders and us with our first responders and lots of other people, and we brought in a lot of helicopters from all over, and we had a lot of helicopters. It was actually dangerous, a lot of helicopters up there, but they were real pros and they were responsible for pulling out a lot of people, and we got them there fast, and Texas had some good ones too, but the response has been incredible, and the fact that we got along so well, I don't know, I don't even think that's a political thing, but we got along so well, and it was so unified. I think a lot of lives have been saved. That could have been as bad as it was, and you could have lost double or triple. This thing was just really horrible. Well, congratulations on a great job, and appreciate it. I know you're going down. I'll be going down on Friday with First Lady. We'll be taking a trip, and we don't want to get in anyone's way because that's what happens. The president goes and everyone's around focused on. I don't want anyone to focus on us, but it's possible they could have somebody saved still. There's a lot of areas. It's a big area, and probably unlikely at this point, but there could be. I mean, they're thinking there could be the possibility, but what a tragic situation. A good job, and we'll see you on Friday, and we'll finish out the day here. I think you've been reading a lot about it's a terrible topic when you talk about financial after this, but we have a big country and we've been doing very well. The tariffs, as you know, are starting to come in at record levels. Tremendous amounts of money are coming in to our country. We never did that before. We're not used to it. We only have tariffs going out. We only adhere to the rules of other nations who charge us tremendous tariffs because we were led by stupid people or people without any business sense. And I'd like to ask Scott, you could maybe talk a little bit about how well we're doing with regard to the money coming in. And the big money will start coming in on August 1st. I think it was made clear today by the letters that were sent out yesterday and today. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. We will have taken in about $100 billion in tariff income thus far this year, and that's with the tariff, the major tariff not having started till the second quarter. So we could expect that could be well over $300 billion by the end of the year. We don't agree with CBO scoring, but for those who do, the CBO scored tariff income over the next 10 years at $2.8 trillion, which we think is probably low. And sir, under your leadership, we're witnessing.
And they gave us no credit during this last the great, big, beautiful bill. I always use the word great. I add that to it because it really is what it is. It's never been anything like it, actually. And I want to thank all the Republicans that voted for it. And I want to, scold the Democrats because they're voting for tax cuts. They're voting for no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and many, many other things far more important than that. Great health care. And frankly, every Democrat should lose their election because it was purely political vote. They were told not to vote for it. So think of it, we got 218-2, and then with the Senate, we had 50-3. Democrats didn't vote at all, not one positive vote, with all of the good things in there. Economic development money, tremendous border money. Now you're loaded up on the border, and I don't think we're going to need so much of it because we had zero come in last month, so I'm not sure how much of it we want to spend. You may think about that. You may actually think about saving a lot of money because the wall's been largely built, and it obviously worked. But you may want to think about that. But so I think it's incredible when I watch the Democrats, and they have standard lines like they had Russia, Russia, Russia. They had the laptop from hell. It all came from Russia. They make things up and they go with it and they feed it to you people in many cases. And they said, here's a line. And I hear the new line is death. Oh, it's death. Everyone's going to die. It has nothing to do with death. In fact, we're saving our country. Death is from allowing 25 million people into our country, of which 3 or 4 are stone cold, hard criminals. 11,888 are murderers, many of them committing more than one murder. That's death, and the Democrats did that. Joe Biden did that by allowing people to come in here just totally unchecked, unvetted, open borders, open borders. The whole world was dumped into our country from prisons, from gangs, from mental institutions. We have many people walking the streets, walking in areas that we don't know anything about, that came out of insane asylums. They released the insane asylum population into our country, and it's amazing the job that you and Tom Homan are doing, by the way, on that. But we have to get them out, and we have no choice. We have to get them out, and we are getting them out. And so, Pete, do you want to tell them about our great military and how well we did with respect to the bombers and the B-2? We had the pilots here 2 days ago, and they were incredible people. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Truly a historic mission, and demonstrated the skill and courage of the United States military. From those B-2 pilots and families that we had a chance to meet, sir, to the fighter pilots, to the refuelers, to the maintainers, to the air defenders who defended the base. What was demonstrated on the world stage was American military might and capability. And it wasn't just Fordo and Esfahan and Natanz that took notice in Iran. It was the rest of the world, that we have a decisive commander-in-chief willing to use these capabilities, which are the best in the world. As the president pointed out, no one else could have done what America did there on that night, and everyone took notice of that. With the one big beautiful bill, sir, we've got $150 billion additional to invest in Golden Dome and all the other weapons systems and stockpiles and shipbuilding priorities of yours. Another month, another historic recruiting bump. It's not just the Army and the Marine Corps anymore, it's the Navy, the Air Force, and the Space Force, all historically ahead of where they've ever been. So historic spirit inside the military. We had a chance to be at NATO, Marco and I, and see how the world responds to us saying it's time for you to shoulder the burden and take the lead for your continent. It only happens with President Trump leading, and we're proud to be a part of what's going on at the border, sir, with now a 4th national defense area where we're helping get to that number 0 and securing the border. But that mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, re-established deterrence. It reversed what happened in Afghanistan. You saw the debacle of what Biden allowed to happen in Afghanistan and what that did to our image. President Trump said, with Operation Midnight Hammer, we're reestablishing American leadership and deterrence, and we're proud to be a part of it, sir.
And our so-called enemies were watching. They watched every minute of it. They watched. There was very few people that weren't watching, actually, but they watched every minute. It was a perfect military performance, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, if you compare that to the same country, the hostages from years ago, Jimmy Carter, it was unfortunate for Jimmy Carter. He was a nice man, but with the helicopters going down, the sandstorms, the prisoners, they got captured, then the election and the prisoners and Reagan and all the problems. It was nothing but problems. And that was a failure. And ours was not only the pilots, I mean, those machines flew for 37 straight hours. They didn't stop. They went skedaddle. You know the word skedaddle? It means skedaddle. They dropped the bombs, and somebody said, skedaddle. Let's get the hell out of here. And every bomb hit its mark, and hit it incredibly. And as you know, the Atomic Energy Commission said it's gone. That place is gone. We had a lot of fake reporting, mostly from CNN, where the scammer writer, a writer for CNN, who should be fired, by the way, she was involved with the 51 fake intelligence agents, if you remember that. She did that story, created a story out of it. She created a story out of the laptop from hell, saying it came from Russia, but it actually came from Hunter Biden's bedroom, or worse. Just a scammer, and she's still at CNN, which is pretty amazing. But we'll ask you a question about her. But they came up with this concept that maybe the attack wasn't that good. Maybe it, and I saw it happen right after the attack. I saw this person on CNN. I like to watch the enemy. You learn from the enemy. And I watch, because you have to know where they're coming from. And I watched her say, Anderson, you know, I'm hearing stories that maybe they didn't hit their target. Maybe it wasn't that good a hit. And they were hearing stories. The next day it was a little more, and the next day a little more. After 3-4 days, she was saying, you know, I don't know. I don't think it was that, except by that time everybody knew it was hit perfectly. The evidence is in the planes. The evidence the pilots are their best evidence. But they actually came out of their plane, because they were here the other day, and they said, it was so sad. We did such a good job. We flew into very dangerous airspace. I'll never forget, we were in the Situation Room, and they said they have entered Iranian airspace, and everyone took a deep breath, because they had more missiles pointed at them, but the equipment is so good, it's stealth, way up in the air, and it was stealth, and they went right through that, and they sort of, by the time they found out they were there, they were already gone. That was the word skedaddle, get the hell out of here. But they were right in the most dangerous airspace in the world, and they took those big, beautiful, very fast, they're unbelievable planes. I mean, they become really beautiful works of art. You know, I always thought they sort of were cool, but now they look better than just cool, don't they, huh? But they dropped the loads, and literally they would hit, if you look at this table, from here to there, they had a half a refrigerator door is the way to best explain it. Take a refrigerator door, average size, cut it in half. That was their target. They hit every single one. Then we had 30 missiles, Tomahawk, shot from submarines 300 miles away. Every one of them hit their target. It was a perfect mission. Then they came back, almost 37 hours. Every plane worked perfectly. The mechanics were here too. I said, you got to get the mechanics here. We didn't have any problems. If you remember, they had a lot of problems with the helicopters, but they did fly through a dust storm, which they shouldn't have done. Sometimes you say, let's go back and try it on a nicer day. Dust and sand don't work well with helicopters, if you know much about helicopters. But that was a horrible embarrassment to us. Then we had Afghanistan, which I think was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And we would have gotten out. I was the one that got them down. I would have kept Bagram, the big air base, which right now is controlled by China, one among the most powerful runways in the world, thick with concrete and steel. Anything could land, and right now, they were 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. I was keeping it. Outside of that, we were leaving, and I would have been out faster than them, but we would have gotten out with strength and dignity. Instead, that was the most botched up mess I've ever seen. They left all that equipment behind, and every year they have a parade running down some third-rate street with the equipment. You know, it's supposed to be Fifth Avenue. It doesn't work. But with all that equipment that they left, they should have taken every ounce of it. I was taking every ounce. I said every screw, every bolt, every nail you take out of there. And Millie said, I remember one time, so we're better off leaving the equipment. Why? Well, it's cheaper. I said, cheaper? You mean it's cheaper to leave a $150 million airplane rather than flying it into Pakistan or India or someplace, or just flying it straight home? It's cheaper. yes, sir. That's when I knew he was an idiot. Didn't take long to figure that one out. But they left all that equipment, but they left their dignity behind. It was the most embarrassing moment, in my opinion, in the history of our country. Not that we got out, we should have not been there, but that we got out the way we got out, with great embarrassment and death. You had 13 young people. I've gotten to know their families very well, but you had hundreds of people killed that nobody talks about. Yet the other side, many people were killed. Many people are walking around with no legs, no arms from that whole thing. They left from the wrong airport. They should have left from Bagram, because Bagram was a big base with hundreds of miles of fencing and territory around it. Nobody would be able to get near it, and they left. So we've done a great job, and I think people are really starting to see it. They're starting to appreciate it. Pete's done fantastically. That mission was a work of art, and I have spoken to some of our perceived, I don't know if they're enemies, but they're perceived as being potential enemies. And they essentially said the same thing, very impressive. There wasn't a thing that we didn't lose an engine. We didn't lose it. They landed and they were cheered. But the sad thing was they were cheered, and one of the pilots said, we were a little concerned because when we got out, we were told that on television they were reporting that we may have missed our targets. Sir, we hit every target. That's what I do for a living. We hit every target. In fact, when the bombs hit, a yellow haze came over the horizon that I've never seen before. It just lit up the whole horizon, brighter than the sun. It was like looking into the sun. He goes, we hit our target, because you know what that was exploding. And but they were a little downbeat because they listened to that fake CNN reporting and the fake New York Times. They worked together to try and say that it wasn't perfect. They couldn't say they missed. All they could say is, maybe it wasn't perfect. And you ought to fire that reporter immediately. You should fire her. Real fake. And so I just want to congratulate those pilots. And a lot of people don't like bringing things like that up. I do. I always like confronting, because otherwise the public doesn't know that you're a bunch of crooked people. But they know, they've learned, and the media has to straighten out their act. The media is down to 17% approval. You got to do a little better than that. It's important for the country that you do better. I think they ought to make a lot of changes. I think changes are going to be made to the media, but it's hard to have a really successful country if you have a corrupt media, and we really have a corrupt media. And nobody really knows why. I mean, why would you want to have open borders and criminals pouring into our country? Why would you want to have men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone? You'll have to figure that out. But some of you don't. I mean, I'm looking at some people, they love the country, but I look at other people and they can't. But we're really proud of our military. It was, and the people that maybe don't like us or want to play games with us, because I think that had you not had the situation in Afghanistan, I don't think Putin would have gone in. I think when Putin looked at how stupid and incompetent that operation was, he said, wow, this might be a chance. And we're dealing with him now too. We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week. And I'm not happy with Putin. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Yes, sir. You just said you're not happy with Vladimir Putin. Is there anything that you plan to do to act on that feeling of unhappiness?
Well, I wouldn't be telling you. Don't we want to have a little surprise? One of the things we did with the attack is that, and you asked that question, I didn't mean to be rude, but I'm in a rude because I'm looking at some of these crooked people up here, so I'm rude, but your question was asked very nicely. But one of the things we did is we went over every fact. We wanted to get every fact straight. We wanted to have the distance straight, the number of pilots straight. Everything had to be correct, because we want to be, this was a very important mission. If we failed on this mission, it was beyond the war that, obviously we had with Iran and Israel, and a lot of hatred, a lot of years and years of hatred, centuries of hatred. People have never seen anything like it. So we wanted to be correct with all our facts. So what I was doing is just asking, it would be great if the media would be correct with their facts. That's all we ask for. So, go ahead. So finish it up.
Oh yes, just returning back to Russia. If there's anything that you would signal about your displeasure with them.
Well, look. I'm very unhappy with them. There's no reason for this. It's turned out to be tougher, but it's only tougher. And I will say the Ukrainians were brave, but we gave them the best equipment ever made. We gave them the anti-tank busters that knocked out tanks. I mean, you just aim them in the direction of the tank and the tank is gone. We gave them missiles, the latest and the greatest. They were able to shoot down a lot of things that would have normally wiped out. Probably would have been a very quick war. It would have been a war that lasted 3-4 days, but they had the benefit of unbelievable equipment. And Europe gave them too. We gave them far more because Biden shouldn't have done that. He should have equalized. We should have given them the same, or we should have given actually less than Europe. It affects Europe much more than us, but we're in there for over $300 billion. Europe's in there for over $100 billion, but still, Europe gave a lot. And I will say this, the Ukrainians, whether you think it's unfair that we gave all that money or not, they were very brave because somebody had to operate that stuff. And a lot of people I know wouldn't be operating it. They wouldn't have the courage to do it. So they fought very bravely. But we gave them the best equipment in the world. We make the best military equipment by far. There's nobody close. You look at other equipment from other countries, it's not even close. That's why everybody wants to buy our equipment. And that's why we're going to step up these contractors now that make it, and they're brilliant, but they make it too slowly. And we have to step them up, Pete, and let them make it at a much higher rate. Unfortunately, we have to do that. But if you look at our Patriots, if you look at our Tomahawks, if you look at our, what we do with tanks is, you wouldn't want to be driving a tank. You would feel nice and secure, but they are javelins, they're called. And I gave them the javelins. Remember they said Trump gave the javelins and Obama gave them sheets, right? They called Obama at that time. Barack Hussein Obama, if you haven't heard, did a terrible job. But that was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Do you want to sanction him? Lindsey Graham has a sanctions bill on Russia. Do you want him to move
I'm
that
looking
down?
at it, yeah, no, I'm looking. The Senate is passing and passed a very, very tough sanctions bill. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Can you sign that?
It's an optional bill. It's totally at my option. They passed it totally at my option, and to terminate totally at my option. And I'm looking at it very strongly.
Yesterday you said you want to see more.
Go ahead, please.
The Council of Economic Advisors released a new report saying that imported goods have actually decreased in price from December through March. Well, my question is,
with the tariffs.
Well, the Fed chairman keeps saying that tariffs are going to cause price increases.
Are
the prices just not
Chairman
passed
of the
through?
Fed?
Yes, exactly.
Well,
Are the prices,
you do a better job than him.
Are the prices just not passed through yet?
No, I think what's happening is everything's evening out. You know, when we charge, see, what people don't understand, the other countries have been charged, almost every country charges us tariffs. We had deficits with everybody for years, for decades. And we were like this big monolith that made bad deals with everybody. We rebuilt South Korea and we stayed there. It's okay, we rebuilt it and we stayed there. And they pay us very little for the military. I got them to pay billions of dollars, and Biden then canceled it when he came in. I said to South Korea, as an example, we give you free military, essentially, very little. And I think you should pay us $10 billion a year. And they went crazy. But they agreed to 3. So I got 3 with a phone call. And I was satisfied. I said, but next year we have to talk. And then we had a rigged election, and we never got to talk. And you know what Biden did? They probably went to him and they said, listen, Trump treated us terribly and we shouldn't be paying anything, and he cut it down to nothing. So that's what happens. It's ridiculous. That's the other thing. We're talking to countries about contributing to the military, not only just paying more in NATO, but contributing. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in Germany, 52,000 actually. And, you know, that's a huge economic development for them. That's tremendous amount. That's like having a city. It's tremendous money for them, and it's a tremendous loss for us. So we're talking, in a very nice way, we're talking to them about it. It's very unfair. We supply the militaries to many very successful countries. I mean, South Korea is making a lot of money, and they're very good. They're very good, but, you know, they should be paying for their own military.
President Trump, I'll ask you a question about Jerome Powell as well, and then a question to the Attorney General. Jerome Powell, and then I have a question for the Attorney General. Jerome Powell, who you've been pressuring to lower interest rates, he's facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime about the opulent.
Well, then he should resign immediately. We should get somebody in there that's going to lower interest rates.
Do you want congressional Republicans?
Why don't you go for his resignation?
Do you want congressional Republicans to investigate and pursue?
Okay
and
with
punish?
me. I think he's terrible. I think, look, we're paying, I call him too late. T-O-O, too late. Like Too Tall Jones for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Too late. He's always late. But he wasn't late with Biden before the election. He was cutting him like crazy. It didn't help too much, did it? But he was cutting him like crazy before the election with Kamala and Biden. He was trying to get them in, I guess. I don't know. He was recommended by somebody that worked for me. I like you better.
If I could ask the Attorney General a question too, President.
Sure.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did, and also could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the staff?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey,
I
Pam,
could,
could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure, sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every year, every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Mr. President, on the tariffs again, on August 1st, you've said is the deadline. What incentives do countries have to negotiate? It seems that deadline keeps moving. It was April 2nd, now it's...
We didn't move, no. It's always been August 1st, that's when we're paying. A statement was put out today, and I put it out just to make it clear. It wasn't a change, it was August 1st. We don't change very much, you know. Every time we put out a statement, they say he made a change. I didn't make a change. A clarification, maybe. No, August 1st they pay. And everybody pays, everybody has to pay, and the incentive is that they have the right to deal in the United States. If they don't want to, they don't have to pay, and they don't have to deal here. But if they want to buy and make a lot of money and sell in the United States, they have to do that. You know, if you go back and look at some of the good presidents, our country was the wealthiest, proportionately the wealthiest, from 1870 to 1913. It was an all-tariff country. we didn't have income tax. That came in in 1913. We had tariffs. And we had so much money we didn't know what to do with it. We had, we had a couple of presidents that were very, very strong. McKinley, I guess, more than anybody, but he was the tariff king, but he was very, very strong. And it's sort of sad. He made a fortune for this country, became very rich, and then Teddy Roosevelt went out and vice president, and he spent the money. And they said Roosevelt was a great president. And let's say he was a great president, but the money was paid by McKinley with tariffs. Tariffs are charged by other countries at levels that are ridiculous. And I call those other countries, and every one of them is willing to give us everything now, by the way, just so you know. Sir, we'll charge you no tariffs, nothing. We'll give you everything. We'll give you access to our markets. We'll give you everything. Is that a correct statement, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Howard, would you say that's a correct statement?
Exactly correct.
It's like they just don't, because they're very spoiled, because for years they ripped us off and we didn't have a president that understood it, or Secretary of Treasury or Secretary of a lot of different secretaries are involved, but certainly Commerce Secretary was, not doing their job. I don't know about Kelly, she's small business. We'll keep it that way, okay? Her small business is bigger than almost all big businesses when you add it all up. But no, they are very respectful of our country, but the incentive is that they have the right to do business with us. Without that, they don't have the right to do business, and that would be okay too.
Will there be a flurry of deals? Will we hear in the next 24 hours? Will we hear a flurry of deals?
Yeah, we have a lot of them going out, but the deals are mostly my deal to them. We're picking a number that's low. We don't want to hurt them, and fair. We're picking a number that's lower than, in most cases, lower than what they charged us. But it's amazing when you've paid all this money for years and they get one president that's a little bit different and a little tougher on this subject, and they're willing to drop everything they've been charging us for years and years. I mean, we have countries going, we will have you don't have to pay any tariff to come in and do business. They're giving us total access to their countries. They gave us no access to the country. They'd say, well, you cannot go into our country. Okay, good. Now we will give you total access and you don't have to pay any tariffs. But please don't charge us tariffs. And we don't like that deal. So the letters I send out we have made some deals. We can make a lot more deals. It's just too time consuming. It just makes it more complicated. And we can do things over the years too. We're not hard line. But it's about time the United States of America started collecting money from countries that were ripping us off and laughing behind our back at how stupid we were. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. President, on the tariff issue, so you've talked about India coming, but then a couple days ago you issued a new tariff threat to members of the BRICS countries for if they aligned with anti-American policies.
10% charge.
That would be India, Brazil, Russia,
They have to
South
pay
Africa.
10% if they're in BRICS. Because
Right.
BRICS was set up to hurt us. BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir, or is
Yeah,
that
pretty soon.
if they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff just for that one thing. And they won't be a member long. I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president, like the last one, you would lose the standard. You wouldn't have the dollar as you. And if we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. We're not going to let that happen. The dollar, you ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way, okay? And I'm just saying, if people want to challenge it, they can. but they're going to have to pay a big price. And I don't think any of them are willing to pay that price.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are you optimistic about reaching the tariff deal with the European Union soon?
Well, the European Union has been speaking to us, Ursula and the whole group, and they've been very nice. They treated us very badly until recently. Now they're treating us very nicely. It's like a different world, actually. They've treated us very badly. They were among the toughest to deal with. Actually, in many respects, they were much worse than China. Look at what they do to our companies. They sue Apple, they sue Google. 17 billion they got from Apple on a lawsuit that they didn't have a case. They have, judges that are European Union judges, and they ruled. They take so much money away from our country in terms of that, in terms of other things that they do. They're very tough, but now they're being very nice to us, and we'll see what happens. We're probably 2 days off from sending them a letter. We are talking to them. I just want you to know, a letter means a deal. A lot of people say, we got 200 countries. We can't meet with 200 countries. We have a few trusted people that know what they're doing, that are doing a good job, but you can't do it. You have to do it in a more general way, but it's a very good way. It's a better way. It's a more powerful way. And we sent them a letter. You read the letter. I think it was well crafted. And mostly it's just a little number in there. You'll pay 25%, 35%. We have some at 60, 70. Those are ones with massive, where we have massive trade deficits because they've treated us very badly. But I would say in every case, I'm treating them better than they treated us over the years. Don't you agree with that? I do. I could have done much. I could have been much harsher. I don't want to do that. We want to have relationships, but in every case, they treated us far worse than I'm treating them. I'm treating them very good. I could go higher with the tariffs, but I don't want to hurt them. That's why when you just read it, you come up with the number. It's so incredible that prices are actually going down. Just so you know, when I got in, everyone said, "Oh, eggs are going through the roof." That was the first. I was in for about 4 days, and they started screaming at me about eggs. They said, "That's Biden's problem." I didn't know about eggs, but eggs went up about 5 times. You did a fantastic job, and we ended up shortly getting. In fact, for Easter, they said, "Go out and buy plastic eggs. You can't use real eggs." Well, we bought 200,000 eggs for the White House for the Easter egg hunt that we have at the White House, and there were eggs. We had the price down, and now the price is lower than it was before. We did a good job with eggs, but we did a good job with groceries. Our prices are down in this country. A big part of it's oil. The oil, you had a couple of places last week. You had $1.99 for oil, for gasoline. Nobody thought they'd see that. I want to get it lower if I can, but we've done a good job. You've done a very good job. Do you want to say a couple of words about that, you and Chris, about what's happening with energy?
Well, absolutely, but I would say on the pricing side, President Trump, the fact that you've endorsed and supported a policy of energy dominance, that sends a signal to the market that we're going to have more supply. You talked during the campaign about inflation being a country buster. You've broken in the back of inflation. In 6 months, among all the other things you've accomplished.
We have no inflation.
And we've got, and then heading into the 4th of July, these were the lowest gas prices at the pump in 4 years. And again, for Americans, this is like hundreds of billions of dollars that stay in their pockets because we lower the price of gas at the pump. And when we lower the price of energy, it lowers the price of food. It lowers the price of the clothes you wear.
It's the biggest thing.
It's the biggest thing.
It's like a big tax cut. When you get energy down, every 50 cents is like a massive tax cut, and we've gotten it down much below that. We had great energy, great low prices, everything else. When the election turned over, I'm trying to be nice about it. It turned over, shockingly, but nevertheless it happened. Energy started going up, and it went up really bad, and then he went back to the Trump policy. The problem was they didn't know how to do that, and he lost it. He lost that sucker. That big sucker was out of control, and his energy prices went way up, and that's what caused it. But it was also stupid spending. They spent money like, they used to use the term drunken sailors, but I won't use that term. Although it is very descriptive, I won't use that term. I refuse to use it. But they spent money at levels that nobody had ever seen before, and trillions and trillions of dollars wasted on the Green New Scam. Greatest scam in the history of our country. other than maybe Russia. And that electricity is going to be passed into the grid and give us no more, like you look at California, they have blackouts and brownouts every week. They're totally out of control. They have a really incompetent governor. Where's Chris? Is he here? Do you want to speak to the subject?
Yeah, I think a huge thing in the One Big Beautiful Bill, Mr. President, because of your leadership, is the ending of these subsidies, as you call them, the Green New Scam. That saves our country $500 billion over the next 10 years. But American taxpayers were paying twice. They were paying that money, $500 billion in the subsidies, and they were paying more expensive electricity price. If you subsidize something, you should at least lower the cost of it. But in this case, we were subsidizing something and paying more for it. So the One Big Beautiful Bill had two huge things: ending wasteful spending. Wind, solar, and batteries combined are 3% of U.S. total primary energy. 3% for $1 trillion, another $500 billion coming. It's just not a good investment, hurting our businesses, hurting our consumers. And the One Big Beautiful Bill also unshackled oil, gas, and coal development in the United States, onshore and offshore. Secretary Burgum has been working tirelessly on how, by getting the government out of the way, private businesses will develop more resources in the United States, lowering costs for American consumers and making much better leverage for the United States to help our allies abroad and reduce the power of our adversaries abroad. So just a huge win on the energy front all around, and I thank you for your leadership.
We're setting records now on energy, and there'll be nothing compared to what they'll be in about a year from now, but we're setting records. And wind is a very expensive form of energy. It's very bad for your beautiful surroundings, the plains and the valleys, and the birds are dying all over the place. The whole thing is a disaster. They're almost exclusively made in China. Not that I have anything against China, because I don't have a great relationship with President Xi, but I asked him, how many wind farms do you have? He makes them, but they don't have a lot of wind farms, I'll tell you, very, very few. And wind is tremendously expensive and is very ugly. And if you own a house that's inside of a windmill, your house is worth less than half. And you hear noises. And interestingly, in New England, you probably read, where for 50 years they had 2 wells washed up, 50 years. And last summer, they had 14 washed up. Now, I'm not saying that's the wind farm that was built, but maybe it is, right? Probably is. It's tremendously expensive, and it can only be done with subsidy. I know a man that's in that business, and one of the biggest in the world actually runs a company that builds these stupid windmills. And he said, I hate the business because it's the only energy where you need subsidy. He said, energy shouldn't need subsidy. You should make money with energy. So wind. The other one is the solar, those big solar fields. They're taking our farmland. Our farmers are like mortified by it. They hate it. It's very, very inefficient and very ugly too. You know, probably better than a windmill, but you go around and you see all these things that are 3 miles long by 3 miles wide, and you say, what the hell is that? And it's a lot of plastic from China. It's plastic, black plastic from China. Now, we want to be smart. We're going with, look, China right now is building 58 coal-fired plants, 58 big ones. They have 62 on the books to build. We've reintroduced clean, beautiful coal, because you know you can do a lot with coal now. Clean, beautiful coal, and natural gas, and all of the other things that we have. But we don't want wind, and we don't want solar, because they're a blight on our country. They hurt our country very badly, and smart countries don't use it. Solar sounds good, I will say, and I like, on occasion, you'll see a roof which is made of solar brick, but it's a smaller use. We need the kind of thing that's going to fire up our plants, and it's not going to be wind, you know, that is very intermittent, as you probably know. But they've spent a fortune. They've spent trillions of dollars on this stuff. And I'll just give you one other story. A friend of mine is a very successful guy. He went back to see his mother in Minnesota. He hadn't seen her in a long time. And he wasn't back for 10 years, which isn't a nice story. I mean, you don't see your mother for 10 years. She's got some difficulties, which I know the guy, he does have some difficulties. He's very successful, but probably not the nicest person. It was actually longer than 10 years, but he went back and he told me he wanted to go and look at the valley. There's a valley in Minnesota that he thought was so beautiful. And I hadn't seen it in a long time. He's driving along the road. He said, oh my, I'll use the word gosh, oh my gosh. He said, oh, he said it looked like a junkyard. You had 159 windmills. They were all over the place. Some were old, some were newer, different companies, different shapes, different sizes, different colors. Many of them were terminated. Terminated meaning closed. You can't take them down because the environmentalists don't let you bury the blades because they're made out of a fiber they say is bad for the earth. So they want you to put them up, but they don't let you take them down. But many of them were turned off. He said it looked like a junkyard. Go to Palm Springs, California, and take a look at that pile of junk. You go into a wealthy neighborhood. Before you get there, you have to ride through hundreds of windmills that are, most of them are turned off. They're rotting, they're rusting, they're 30 years old, 20 years old, and they have a very short life. You know, those windmills have a very short life, especially the ones that are in the nice salty Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean, where the salt just gets onto that steel and decimates it. No, it's a horrible, horrible thing for our country. And I speak out. It would be nice to say wind, because it sounds so good, doesn't it, Doug? Wind, wind. But it's not. It's these ugly machines, and they're all made, you gotta see, some are a little taller, a little shorter. They're made by different companies. They have different stocks. They have different blades. They have different everything. It is so horrible. And if you look at smart countries, they don't use it. Smart countries don't use it. And we're now a smart country. We're a brilliant country. We're not smart, we're brilliant now. We're gonna be a brilliant country. We have to be, because we have to catch up for some really stupid people that did a bad job. Yes, Brian?
Yes, Mr. President, I've got a quick comment, some feedback as a native Texan, someone that I grew up bringing my kids to a camp very near the affected camp now. Thank you on behalf of Texas. I've gotten hundreds of messages that want to thank. It's, if you're in the cabinet room, you can tell the president and his team, on behalf of Texans, thank you so much for the quick response and the loving, the hugs. I saw that you gave. Two quick questions.
I saw a Palestinian senator. His name is Shimmer. He's a great Palestinian. No, he's a Palestinian. He's become a Palestinian. He's abandoned the Jews. But I saw him say, it's Trump's fault. Yeah, that's right. It's Trump's fault. He was actually, do you ever see John Lovett's The Liar? Where he goes, yeah, I went to Harvard, that's right. This was Schumer. He goes, yeah, it's Trump's fault, that's right, it's Trump. I actually saw that stupid guy try and blame it on me, and I said, man, That's a tough one to take. But his career is limited because I hear AOC is going to beat him, and she's no bargain either, by the way. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that's an example of an America First team effort to get this country back. So that's what America First looks like for the viewers watching us at home. My two questions. Looks like we have a rogue judge, an Obama-backed rogue judge that is attempting to block the funding to Planned Parenthood, which the big, beautiful bill cuts off the funding to Planned Parenthood. Any plans to challenge that?
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes, we're on it. We're on it. And I texted, I believe, I talked to yesterday Secretary Lutnick and Secretary Besson. I reached out to you to let you know that we were on it in the big, beautiful bill.
Wonderful. And then my
I let her handle that question. You notice? I said, go ahead, handle that question.
I'll toss it to her. Then my second question was Secretary Rollins. You did an amazing press conference today in front of the Department of Agriculture. You talked about the Farm Act and the need to get China out of our country, owning farmland. For the viewers at home that might have missed that, can you recap what that means to national security to make sure we can grow our own food?
Well, thank you, Brian, sir, if you don't mind. Yes, this morning Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Noem, and Attorney General Bondi and I had a press conference at the USDA. I just happened to have a chart in case it came up, but obviously the Chinese owning of farmland in our country is a massive national security issue. And for the media, you can see the yellow is where all of the farms have been purchased over the last number of years. And the red is around all of the military bases where that farmland has been purchased. So this is a massive national security issue. The press conference this morning included 3 of our greatest governors as well, Sarah Sanders from Arkansas, Jim Pillen from Nebraska, and Bill Lee from Tennessee. The states have begun taking a leadership role to ban the purchasing of China farmland. Obviously, Congress needs to step up and catch up, and we're going to be working alongside of them as well. We had some of our members, great members of Congress there, but it is time. And I think that this morning was symbolic of many things. The first of this administration working every day to effectuate President Trump's leadership and unequivocal support of America First. But second, just how close we are as a cabinet. I don't know in any other administration that you'd have 4 cabinet members at the USDA on a Tuesday morning when it's about 110 degrees outside with the sun beating down on us talking about, sir, your vision. So I think it was a great day. It was just the start. There's an executive order coming and some other things coming behind that. But protecting America's farms isn't just about protecting our farmers. It's also about national security. So that's what we discussed this morning.
I do want to say that I think we have had a really good relationship with China lately, and we're getting along with them very well. They've been very fair on our trade deal, honestly, and I hope we're going to have a great relationship. It's a big, strong, powerful country. We're more powerful than they are. We have much better military equipment than they do, but we are getting along with them very well. I'm getting along with President Xi very well. We speak often. And with all of that being said, and I understand what you're saying, but I think we're getting along with China very well.
Mr. President, you have sent more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We wanted to put defensive weapons because Putin is not, he's not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
I think that's a question for the
Go ahead.
Mr. President, on immigration, the Secretary of the Agriculture did say this morning that undocumented workers would not be covered by any amnesty of who are working on farms. You had said maybe that the ISA folks won't go after those folks on farms. So which is it?
There's no amnesty. What we're doing is we're getting rid of criminals, but we are doing a work program. Do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, this morning we talked about, of course this was a top of mind question, this morning we talked about protecting the farmers and the farmland, but obviously this president's vision of no amnesty, mass deportation continues, but in a strategic way, and then ensuring that our farmers have the labor that they need. Secretary Chavez-DeRimmer has been a leader on this. Obviously this comes out of the Labor Department, but moving toward automation, ensuring that our farmers have that workforce, and moving toward an American workforce. So all of the above.
We've got to give the farmers the people they need, but we're not talking amnesty. Laura, do you want to say something about
Yeah,
that?
thank you, Mr. President. On this, thank you, Secretary Rollins, how important this is never to displace the American worker. What the Department of Labor is doing is focusing on what the law entails now, being more modernized, more streamlining, to work through the H programs. We're going to have a concierge approach to that, where we have developed a new office to answer the need of our farmers and ranchers and producers, and not to displace the American worker and follow within the law now, and that does not include an amnesty program at all. And we've seen that working, and we'll continue to have that roll out. On the other topics that we've somewhat talked about, the jobs numbers, Mr. President, 4 months in a row we've seen those jobs numbers increase. That's an exciting time for our manufacturers. That was asked earlier. We know it's going to take some time, but through that deregulation process that Lee and I are working on as well, the Department of Labor has rolled out 63 new deregulations that we're going to be moving through. In the first Trump administration, it was successful with over 30. We've just rolled out 63 new ones in order to double down on those manufacturing companies, to let them know that we have signaled through this process that we will assist them in getting the workforce that they need. It's an exciting time. That one big beautiful bill, that was the signal to my former colleagues in Congress to get this done. It's been an important time. I spent time on the ground visiting 7 states in 9 days prior to that bill being passed, because it was the most pro-worker piece of legislation that we will ever see really in this country right now. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That matters to the American worker, because we don't want to take their money and give it back. We want them to keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets currently, and that's what they're excited about. And as I move forward with those tariff talks, I heard a company, orthopedic company in Indiana, say to me, for the first time since you have taken office, Mr. President, their increase in their bottom line by 8% since these tariff talks have happened. Not one company has said the president is not doing a good job. These tariff talks are working. They're feeling it on the ground. The media has told a false story, because what's happening on the ground is positive, and that's what we're seeing in these jobs numbers. So I really, through the Department of Labor, to come in behind all the secretaries and build this workforce is going to be key to the American worker. So thank you for what everybody did this last week. The One Big Beautiful Bill is a doubling down of this, and we're going to see these workers start to grow. And that apprenticeship program is going to be working.
That's
we'll
right.
have that
It's gonna
1 million
be
apprentices across the country.
We, as you know, we're building plants all over the country now, which you weren't building any plants 4 years ago. You weren't building anything. But those plants, when they open up, it's going to be, you'll see numbers like you haven't seen ever. I don't think in history you'll never see numbers like what we're going to see in the very near future. Many of them are building the plants. Some are just starting right now. You know, it's a brand new administration. But, and they wouldn't be here except for 2 things: November 5th, the election, and the tariffs. And frankly, I guess the election was more important because of the tariffs. I mean, another person wouldn't have done this. But they're coming in because of the tariffs. They have to, they're not going to pay 25, 30, 40, 50%, 70, and 100%. And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here now. They all left. They went to other places because we allowed, people that sat in this room allowed it to happen. And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen. So we're going to be announcing pharmaceuticals, chips, and various couple of other things, you know, big ones. We did steel, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
Why don't you announce copper?
And we did cars. And now, today we're doing copper.
Copper and lumber. What would that tariff be on? The sectional tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
Any breakthroughs in
See, I'm glad he didn't question it. I sort of thought, what would that be? That's a quick one. I didn't have much time, but he agreed with me. That's why he's Howard. Right?
Any breakthroughs on Gaza with the Prime Minister, and there's reports that you're meeting with Netanyahu again tonight. Is that accurate?
Yeah, he's going to come over again tonight. We're talking about Gaza, mostly Gaza right now. It's been very unfairly treated. I think what they've done to him in Israel is very unfair, having to do with this trial. I think, you know, he's a wartime prime minister, had an unbelievable outcome, and I think he's been treated very unfairly. But he's coming over later. We're going to be talking about, I would say, almost exclusively Gaza. We got to get that solved. Gaza is a tragic. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And he wants to get it solved, and I want to get it solved, and I think the other side wants to get it solved. Steve, could you talk on that, please?
We're in proximity talks now, and we had 4 issues, and now we're down to 1 after 2 days of proximity talks. So we are hopeful that by the end of this week, we will have an agreement that will bring us into a 60-day ceasefire. 10 live hostages will be released. 9 deceased will be released. We're meeting at the President's direction with all the hostage families to let them know. And we think that this will lead to a lasting peace in Gaza.
And you're doing a good job. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. A lot of hate, you know. It's called long-term hate. But we think we're going to have it solved pretty soon, hopefully with a real solution, a solution that's going to be holding up.
And can I follow up? This is, I think, the first cabinet meeting since Elon Musk has not been a special government employee, not here anymore. He's now saying he's going to create a third political party. Are you worried about the impact that that could have?
No, I think it'll help us. It'll probably help. Third parties have always been good for me. I don't know about Republicans, but for me.
Are you second guessing any of the cuts that DOJ made? Since you
No,
described him as
no.
off
Look,
the rails
look.
the other day?
We cut hundreds of billions of dollars with DOJ. We could have done it differently. I would have done it differently a little bit, maybe, but it was something that we saved a lot of money. You can always second guess. I guess some of the people in this room maybe would have done it slightly differently, and some would have done it exactly the way it was done. But it was dramatic, and it was important, and we found a lot of things like billions of dollars given to people for environmental protection, where they had $100 in the account, like in Atlanta, Stacy, and then you had another one with 20 billion here, and 20 billion here, and 2 billion here, and 15 billion, and Lee, you might want to mention just a couple of those things. We really got because of DOJ.
At the Trump EPA, the One Big Beautiful Bill was filled with many big beautiful wins for the taxpayer. It delivered a sledgehammer to the Green New scam. Billions of dollars rescinded. So it's a big deal for the American taxpayer who sees money go through pass-throughs that are filled with self-dealing and conflicts of interest. They see unqualified recipients. They see reduced agency oversight, and they want accountability with their tax dollars, and they got it. So in the example of the Stacey Abrams connected NGO, they received $100 in 2023. They got $2 billion in 2024. They had to complete training on how to develop a budget that was put into their grant agreement. They, out of nowhere, started paying a CEO $800,000, a COO $450,000, 22 people making over 150 grand. Out of nowhere, this is tax dollars. So money go through pass-throughs, through other pass-throughs, through other pass-throughs, and we lose oversight over it. And you see that it's going to former Biden officials, it's going to former Obama officials, it's going to Democratic donors. And we're not here saying we want to take money from a left-wing NGO and give it to a right-wing NGO. We want to give it back to the taxpayer. This is about us being good stewards of American tax dollars without any apology or regret. That's why President Trump was elected last November, because there were a whole lot of people who maybe they hadn't voted Republican in a long time. Maybe they didn't even vote for President Trump the first time around in 2016, but they're regretting that vote from 2016 and they were making it right in 2024. So the One Big Beautiful Bill gave us the tools to rescind billions of dollars more. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars that'll get wasted per electric vehicle as an example of this money that was going through it. They gave $50 million to a group called Climate Justice Alliance. They say that climate justice runs through a free Palestine. The Biden EPA gave $50 million to a group that says the climate justice runs through a free Palestine. We say that if you're going to spend $1 in the name of remediating an environmental issue, then spend $1 on remediating an environmental issue. We say that we can protect the environment and grow the economy. We want to help grow more baseload power in this country. So why is it that it took this long for this team to get assembled, to be able to fix the mess that we inherited? But gosh, we love showing up at our jobs every single day, first thing in the morning, because all day long we get things done for the American taxpayer. And Congress did its part last week by passing one big beautiful bill to deliver this accountability and to cut off the Green New scam. So maybe it's a bad day for Stacey Abrams. Maybe it's a bad day for all those well-connected Democrats getting paid off. But you know what? God bless America. Because at the end of the day, President Trump is here, J.D. Vance is here, and the greatest cabinet ever assembled to deliver that much needed and highly demanded accountability.
That was a very good answer. And that's from the heart. That's from the heart.
On Ukraine, the Ukrainians have asked the International Court to go after Russia for using toxic chemicals in the fight. Germany and Germany and the Netherlands have had intelligence saying that. What does U.S. intelligence believe, and what do you believe about the use of chemical weapons? And would you agree that that's the case for the
Well, I'd ask John maybe to discuss it if you'd like, John.
Well, Mr. President, obviously chemical weapons, if it's documented in its use, it's illegal. It's against all international laws of armed conflict and treaties. And obviously I can't share in this room with this audience the intelligence that I can share with you privately, but obviously you're not going to stand or allow for any violations of international law by anyone.
That's right. Thank you. Could I ask Sean to Department of Transportation, Sean Duffy, former great congressman, very popular, decided to go out and make a couple of bucks. He made a lot. Then he got bored with that, though. He likes serving people better, the people. And could I ask you to just discuss a very important subject to me, and that's the modernization of our equipment at airports so that planes aren't crashing into each other and bad things don't happen. It should have been done many years ago. We were going to do it, and then the election precluded that, unfortunately. But we're doing it now. Could you tell them where we are?
Yeah, if I can start with Newark. You guys all covered what happened in Newark. We had outages for a couple of 30-second outages a couple months ago. We have, in 2 months, Mr. President, it's historic speed, laid new fiber lines for communication and tested those in the next month. So those new lines for the Philly Tracon that controls the Newark airspace, they're up and running, lightning fast speed. June was the most on-time June ever in the history of Newark for air travel. So that's going incredibly well. By the way, we shouldn't have dealt with this because Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg had moved the center from New York to Philadelphia. They didn't test the lines. They didn't do the work, which is what brought us all these problems. But in the big beautiful bill, we got $12.5 billion. This is a historic investment in air traffic control. And so what the money is going to allow us to do is move from copper to fiber all over the country. So new copper lines. We think we can do that in 1.5 to 2 years. We have radar that dates back to the 1950s, some of it from the 60s and 70s. We get brand new radar across the country as well. We have some infrastructure money to build TRACONs and centers, the en route centers that control the traffic across the country. So this is a massive new start to rebuild air traffic control. And again, this is dilapidated. Americans think that their government takes care of them and makes the investments that are necessary to make the country work. And for 30, 40 years, the investments weren't made. And so under your leadership and direction, we are making those investments. And per your direction, right now we are interviewing what we could call a general contractor or an integrator. One company to manage. It's a massive project. The FAA is not qualified to manage this kind of a project. So we are now going through the process of finding who that one company will be to manage the whole project. We'll interview those companies together and make that selection. So we'll write one big beautiful check to one beautiful company that'll be responsible for this whole build. But if I can just make one last point, this is not enough money. We're going to need more. But this is a massive new start. The biggest investment. We'll need some more money on top of it, but a great start from the big beautiful.
It's a starter. It was very important to us. And just to cover that, there have been accidents, and my pilots, I would often hear them say, "Oh, good," and they would use a different system, a different country to land in New York. They'd use the the radar and other things from a different country. I said, what's that? He says, oh, our system is so bad. And I knew that. We were all set to start. And Boot Edge came in, and what they did was so crazy because they hooked it copper into fiber, into steel, they had all different systems. They had hundreds and hundreds of contractors, different contractors for different airports. They spent billions of dollars, and they made the system worse because you can't hook copper into fiber. It doesn't work that way. You just can't do it. It's not doable, but they tried to do it. Didn't work out too well. And in the end, it was just a complete disaster. We want to have one great company. Now, Raytheon's going to bid, IBM's going to bid. We have 5 or 6 bidders that really are good and do this stuff. And we want one, I tell, because I know about overruns, I look at the railroad out in California, headed up by one of the worst governors in our country, who I used to get along with actually, but he's just, you know, when you lose 25,000 houses and you would have had your cities burned down. If we didn't step in, Los Angeles would have been burned to the ground. But you look at that, and I said, I really know how to build, and you got to have one guy, one contractor, one great one, whether it's IBM or Raytheon is good, but you have 4 or 5 that are really, really great, and they're all bidding against each other. But you don't want to have one doing the wire and one doing the digging and one doing the demolition and then they're all saying they all blame each other because they're saying they were late and therefore you have to pay me millions of dollars more money. I know the system so well. And we're going to have a great company do the whole thing. We're going to get a fantastic price. Maybe we'll get them, they're very big and very strong, and maybe we'll get them to make a contribution toward getting it done at the right price. But we're going to have a great system. When we finish, we will have the best system on earth, done by one of the 2 or 3 best companies. There are only a few companies can do this. This is not. But if you would have seen what this other group did, they were going crazy. They had, I heard 3,000 contractors, and then when it all came together, guess what? It didn't work. It's a disaster. So we're going to have in a pretty short period of time, it's going to take us about 2 years to build it, and we'll have a contract given out probably over the next couple of months. We have some great bidders, some great companies that want to do the job. You're going to have great air traffic control.
Yes, can I just make one last point on this? So the last administration signed a contract with an American company to fix the copper to fiber, and that contract was a 15-year contract. The system is failing today, but that's how idiotic and incompetent the last administration was. And under your leadership, we're saying, listen, we don't have time. We don't have 15 years. We don't have 5 years. We have to do it right now. And so the president always talks about on time and on budget. We have embraced that. We are
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We've got a lot to get to. I want to let you know some of what we have coming up for you in this next hour here on our show. Give you a live look right now where we are standing by for another update in Texas, Central Texas, from local officials in Kerr County. Where they were devastated by flooding over the weekend, one of the areas that was really hit hardest in that state of Texas. So we're standing by for an update. Officials there are going to give the latest on the flooding rescue and recovery efforts. At last count, 104 people confirmed dead in the entire state of Texas. Dozens are still missing. That includes 10 girls and one counselor from Camp Mystic, the Christian girls camp in Kerr County. And as I said, that county is really one of the areas hit the hardest. We know that 84 people died there, including 28 children, 27 campers, the latest number we got from that Camp Mystic. 850 plus people rescued over the weekend in the flooding across the state. And so This has been a big story. We've been keeping an eye on it. We know that there's a number of organizations from Florida that are either on the ground there or getting ready to head that way to help. So we're expecting an update on the flooding in just any minute now, scheduled to start at 11. That's 10 a.m. Central Time. So we expect them to begin any minute now. And when that begins, we will bring that to you live here on Fox 35 News Plus. We are also standing by expecting President Trump to meet with members of the cabinet and the White House. We will also try to bring that to you when it begins. Also, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner telling us that storm chances are going to be on the increase, so we'll have more on what you need to watch for and prepare for as the week continues. But that also includes a bit of a warning about the heat. You're going to have to take some precautions. Make sure you're hydrated if you have any outdoor plans, because there's going to be a pretty high heat index over the next few days. But we begin with a story out of Lake County, where the estranged wife of suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez bonded out of jail in Lake County yesterday evening. She was behind bars for about 2 weeks, and then when she walked out of jail last night, Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie reports Robin Lopez did not speak with reporters, but her lawyers did.
Well, our cameras were rolling as Robin Severance Lopez walked out of the door behind me. She remained silent as about a dozen reporters and photographers shouted questions at her. She kept her head down, got into the back of a truck, and took off. She is being charged with conspiracy to use or invest proceeds from racketeering. She spent the last 2 weeks locked up until a judge verified and signed off on an order looking into where her $400,000 bond money was coming from. According to the judge, she had to prove the money was clean before he granted her release. It came down to a question of $20,000. Just minutes before her release, around 7:30 last night, Fox 35 caught up with her attorney, Michelle Yard.
A family member gave her the additional $20,000 that she needed, and so we supplied those bank records over the weekend to the state.
All of this stemming from the allegations and arrest of her estranged husband, suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez. Lopez and 3 others are charged with operating an illegal gambling ring. Severance Lopez is now wearing a GPS ankle monitor. She's been ordered to turn over her passport and guns and have no contact with her estranged husband. Now, for the past 2 weeks, she has been in protective custody, which is similar to isolation. Her attorney tells us she's looking forward to being home with her son. Reporting in Lake County, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
I want to go ahead and get you now to Texas, where this briefing is just beginning. Officials in Kerr County, Texas, giving an update. The latest numbers there, they just gave 87 people who died have been recovered, 56 adults, 30 children. Still trying to identify 19 adults and 7 children. Let's go ahead and listen in.
I assure you we will not stop until this mission is complete. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to City Mayor.
Thank you for being here. I'm Joe Herring Jr. I'm Mayor of the City of Kerrville. I want to reassure our community and those families that the city, the county, the state, and the federal experts are working together, not separately, but as one team. If you go inside the Emergency Operations Center, you don't see silos. You see one team. I want to talk briefly about in-kind donations. The outpouring of generosity has been tremendous, and we are grateful. We are working on a new system to accept donations. And when those plans are complete, we will post them online on the city's Facebook page. We are grateful. We need a new system to handle the generosity of the world. Financial donations can still go to communityfoundation.net. That's the community foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Again, we are grateful for the generosity of the world. Over and over, I've asked you to pray. It occurred to me that I haven't asked you for what to pray specifically. Please pray for those who mourn, for those who wait, and for those who help. Now I'd like to call on Lieutenant Colonel Ben Baker.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ben Baker, Lieutenant Colonel for Texas Game Wardens. I'd like to start out by thanking the mayor, sheriff, chief, our local state partners, Texas Department of Public Safety, and the many others that have responded to this tragic event. We as Texas are strong, and together we face adversity. Your Texas Game Wardens responded in the early mornings of Friday to this tragic event, along with many other local and state partners. Since the early mornings of Friday, your Texas Gamers have had over 300 game wardens in the area, serving the people of the state of Texas and the citizens of Kerr County. Among that, we've searched 26 river miles since the tragic event has started. We've had approximately 444 rescues, 30 recoveries. Some of our resources and assets we have dedicated to this tragic event include 2 helicopters with hoist teams, 12 drone teams, 10 K-9 units, 9 swiftwater boat crews, 15 airboats, 16 UTVs, and 169 four-wheel drive vehicles. Your Texas Game Wardens will remain here and serving the community. We just ask you to continue to pray for the victims, for the families, for your first responders, for everyone involved. We'll open it up now to questions, if anybody has any.
Can you talk about how challenging it is for you guys in the mud, the big trees? What's been like the different terrain?
No, thank you for that question. Extremely challenging. You know, we've got, of course, your Texas Game Wardens out there, your local, your state partners, Texas Task Force 1. We've got the National Forest Service out there. We've got A&M Forest Service. We've got numerous responders with specialized capabilities where we've got these large pile of debris. And with our K-9s and you know, when we're trying to make these recoveries, these large piles can be very obstructive. And to get deep into these piles is very hazardous. And those specialized teams have to go in there layer by layer because our first responders, also the safety of them is concerned. So it's extremely treacherous, time-consuming, it's dirty work, the water's still there. So we're having to go layer by layer, peeling these off to make those recoveries. So we're...
What about mentally? Like when you guys stumble across someone who may be deceased, how do you process that?
Absolutely. We process it the best we can. We have professionals in place, our crisis intervention team. All the agencies have some members representing there, and officer wellness is a first responder wellness is a key component to these operations. So we're maintaining and monitoring our officer wellness, our first responder wellness. We're making sure they have the support. It's very tragic whenever you see human life. But to see a child in that loss of life is extremely tragic.
More rain is expected to come down west of us, and eventually it's going to get down to Guadalupe River. Is that going to put a halt to the searches? And if not, how are you going to change the trajectory of the search and rescue operations?
So with the water coming down, that is always a concern. And I'm sure you've been monitoring the last couple of days where we've had some reports of maybe some additional water coming in. Obviously, that's going to impact the search and recovery efforts. You know, us with numerous other agencies do have air capabilities, drone capabilities. We've got numerous fixed wing, rotary helicopters here. So it will alter our patrol patterns and alter our searches, but it won't deter them.
I have a question for the specific discussions and actions were taken between the time the first flood emergency alert came in at 1:14 a.m. and then when started flooding homes hours late. What were the specific actions and discussions that happened in those hours?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure, absolutely. I would like to know if you could outline, please, what the specific actions and discussions were that local officials took between 1:14 a.m., that's when the first flood emergency alert came out, and hours later when the river first started flooding homes. What happened in those hours?
What I can tell you, when I was first notified, it was around the 4 to 5 area. One of my sergeants was in dispatch when the first calls started coming in, the actual 911 calls come in. It was between 4 and 5 when I got notified. Okay, but prior to that, in that 3 to 4 area, my understanding is, and we're in the process of trying to put a timeline. You know, that's going to take a little bit of time. As I've told you several times, that is not my priority this time. There's 3 priorities. That's locating the people out there, identifying and notifying the next of kin. That is what I'm taking as my job as sheriff here to do. Okay.
With all due respect, sir, I think that the community here is asking these questions. What happened? When did it happen? Was the emergency manager awake at the time? Did they push the button to issue an emergency alert?
Sir, it's not that easy when you just push a button, okay? There's a lot more to that. And we've told you several times.
So did it happen, sir?
I can't tell you at this time, okay?
You can't tell me if the emergency manager of the county actually issued an emergency alert.
Okay, Sheriff, who
Shimon, just give me a second.
Emergency Operations Center? Who
Let
runs
him answer the question.
the Emergency
I'll come back to you. I'm going nowhere.
Appreciate it.
Who runs the Emergency Operations Center?
We have a communication center, a dispatch, okay? We have a communication center. That's where the calls actually go to the police department, then they're forwarded to
Right,
us.
but leading up to this, in monitoring the weather, there is, in any large city, in any state, there's an Office of Emergency Management that is monitoring the weather, that is watching and listening and getting briefings. Who was getting those briefings in this city, in this county? Who was receiving that information? And who would have ultimately made the decision to evacuate, hearing what was coming in from the Weather Service and others?
Okay, what we would have done when we get notified, okay, I'm going to tell you that.
You're not emergency management, though, right? The sheriff's not EOC.
No, there is no, I meant as the city. Yeah, help me with that.
So we understand you have many questions. Hang on.
No, I understand, but you're not gonna answer the question because that's up to the city manager and the mayor to answer those
Correct.
questions.
We understand you have many questions.
The judge is not here.
We understand that, but right now, this team up here is focused on bringing people home. That's our focus. All those questions will be answered, but the priority right now
It seems like you're
is bringing people home.
We totally understand that, and we value the incredible work that is being done by those first responders. We're seeing them out there muddy and sweaty and grinding it out day after day. But your community is asking these questions.
And we will get answers.
Manager in the county
Right now, all of our resources are focused to recovery.
Who was in charge of the Emergency Operations Center at the time